stand with us for the flag, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice to all.
All right.
Interesting argument.
This is a public hearing for Kristan, Connolly, Route 403 Garrison. The applicant is seeking a relief from Section 175-36B1, which disallows construction of dwellings on slopes that exceed 20%. The lot, which pre-existed the current zoning as a separate building lot that conformed to the previous zoning, is legally non-conforming. The topography, which, when considered in conjunction with the setback requirements imposed by the current zoning, is such that there is no place upon which one can build and avoid slopes that exceed 20%. I guess, Mr. Watson, you're handling this?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Ellen Watson from David Watson, James Connolly. Kristan. Okay, I will. James Connolly, husband of Kristan Connolly, your applicant, is with me. The public notice really pretty much said everything there is to say, and we've gone over this. We have a 1.5 acre site with some wetlands in the southeast corner, and we want to put the house here, which is in green. And it's really fairly constricted. If we add the wetlands buffer, we have some constriction there. Now you'll notice that the septic system is in the wetlands buffer, and I'll hand up the permit from the health department for that tonight. So
They gave an exception?
actually, it's not an exception per se, but they approved it. I don't. They probably did give us a waiver. Now that I think about it,
Has to be a waiver.
I mean, probably would have had to. Okay. So there's the area set aside for the septic system. What I should point out is that we had to put some special treatment down along the edge of the edge of the septic area between it and the wetland. And essentially, what I think I may have explained it or tried to explain it a little last month, the wastewater that's segregated in the septic tank from the solids goes into the fields and gets absorbed into the ground. And the issue is whether or not the water will go straight down, more or less straight down, and and as that happens, it goes through the soils, and the soils cleanses the water. So by the time it reaches far enough down, which is considered about 3 feet, I think, it's cleaned, and it keeps going. It gets clean. The potential problem is that it would not only go straight down, it would go sideways and go into the wetlands and contaminate that water. So what we've done is constructed a barrier that will prevent that. That was part of the health department approval.
Let me ask you a question on the septic tank system. Is that a two-tank system? You know, with the first one, and then it goes into gray water, the second tank, or just a one tank?
No, it's just the one tank. It's just the one tank. You see two-tank systems. Mostly you see two-tank systems when you have a pump chamber or when the system is so big that you have to, what they call, dose it. Instead of letting the water just sort of dribble out or leak out as it gets filled, gallon in and a gallon goes out eventually. They put in a siphon chamber that doses it when the system is big. And what that does is charge the entire system. The idea being that if you just have a real big system and you just give it a little bit at a time, it may never reach the end of the system. But by giving it a big dose of it one at a time, emptying out that whole tank, it then spreads throughout the system and takes advantage of the full area.
I know, I have a two-tank system. That's why I asked. I have no idea why they made me do it, but that's for another day.
Okay. Then we have the next thing we have is a constraint here is the steep slope. So you'll see we have the building in the steep slopes, in the wetland buffer, and in the steep slopes, and we simply have no problem here. And finally, we have the legal setbacks from the rear line, the side lines, and the street line, shown here in pink. So basically, The only unconstrained land in some fashion is what you see here in white. And we just simply just do not have enough room. We've been through the planning board. We have a conditional approval, conditioned, among other things, upon your approval of a variance necessary to allow us to build in the 20% slope. Incidentally, I'm not certain, but I don't think that slope applies when somebody comes in with an as-of-right subdivision that doesn't go to the planning board. If your house is small enough. So we're really pretty much in a box. We can't do it. We could move the house a little bit out of the slope, but that would move it closer to the back line, and we would need a variance for the rear setback. And we tend not to want to do that for a couple of reasons. We got some rock to the southwest of the property. We don't really want to go too close to the park. We want to leave a little bit of land for ourselves to use in the back, provide some privacy. We can't go to, and we tried to push it back as far as we can. We're right on the setback line. So we really have the 5 reasons, your 5 tests. One of them is you have an alternative. We don't have an alternative that would not require some variance. We could push this thing back and perhaps get right against the property line of the state park and not need the steep slope variance, but we would need the rear setback variance. Our judgment is that, and I hope you'll find the same, and planning board judgment is that it would be better to allow us to build on the steep slopes.
Glenn, if you moved it back, would you shorten the driveway?
No. Well, yeah, I guess you'd shorten it a couple of feet, but not very much.
Just a couple of feet?
Yeah, just a couple of feet. Instead of going over here, you'd go here, and you'd be into the driveway. So you have, what's the scale of this thing? I don't see the scale on it. I'm going to say it's about a 20 scale map. So you'd shorten it about 20 feet, not significantly in our view. We have provided certain things here to protect the wetlands. We're taking the drainage and we're catching the drainage and releasing it into a leaching basin so that it will get treated before it gets into the wetlands. We are, well, that's for construction. So, that's sort of a doormat for the trucks. I mean, they call it a construction entrance. It's actually a construction exit, but they call it an entrance. But at any rate, it basically is a doormat for the trucks to go over when they're leaving the site and rid themselves of the mud. We've provided, we've been with the planning board, we've been with the conservation board.
Does the planning board require anything else except the variance?
From you?
Yeah. Anybody else?
No,
Any
well,
others?
we had the health department permit, so that was off the table. We had the state DOT permit, so that was off the table. I think this was the only there was other conditions like did you pay enough money to the escrow and that kind of stuff, but I don't think there were any others.
We also got approval from the Conservation Board.
We've gotten an approval from the Conservation Board, and I know you asked me to bring that. What I have tonight, I don't know if I have enough copies. Our memorandum from the town board. That's our initial application. I think in that package you will find you will find the DOT permit. I should point out to you that the permit expired in November, but is about to be reissued. And it was reissued. Yeah, it was reissued. They let it expire in November because they didn't want us working in the winter on the things, but they reissued it. Let's see, what else do I have here? A copy of the health department approval, I believe, is in this package that I just handed up.
As my understanding, the applicant doesn't own the property, right?
Not yet.
Well, the owner has applied, but it is under contract to sell it to Kristan Connolly.
So
Kristan.
the applicant is not the owner.
I'm sorry, my mistake. The applicant is not the owner, she's a contract vendee, and along with the application package to permission for this
Okay.
application was handed in, permission from the owner.
So if this was voted down, the applicant would lose his financial money, but would not lose, because he didn't purchase the property yet, correct?
Yeah, we certainly lost, he's certainly got.
Well, I mean, it'd be lost
significant
financially
investment,
to
but
what he
yes,
did for the
you-
planning board and you, but he didn't
Right.
purchase the property yet.
But I think that regardless, I think, you know, I think you're facing that with the owner regardless. The owner is looking to sell the property, and we could have structured it that way and then sold the property. This is the way it's developed.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
I have an issue with the wetlands exposure, because as you know, I'm sure you know, wetlands clean the water for our drinking water in any wetlands cleans drinking water. And I don't like the fact that any of the septic materials are going to make its way to the wetlands. I personally would be much more comfortable if you move that back. So,
There's a couple of problems with moving it back, and we consider all the places. We have to deal with the steep slopes.
no, I understand.
We have exposed rock back here, so we can't do that.
Well, you
And-
can. You said you can. It's just.
No, not in Putnam County. You can't build a septic system on solid rock. You can bring some fill in.
No, but
you-
I'm not saying put the septic system there. I'm saying put the house there further back.
But that wouldn't change the
that wouldn't really change, that's not gonna change the situation.
Well, couldn't you put the septic further away from the buffer zone?
We might get a couple of feet from that.
Just a
And
couple of feet?
Yeah, we might get some distance. I'd have to
Yeah.
think
Well, I'm
about
not
it.
comfortable with any runoff into the
Well,
wetlands.
And I certainly understand that, and that's why we worked with the health department to devise this break in the flow and contain the water from the tank.
Yeah, but from what you said, it's not going to completely contain the septic contents.
It's going to allow it, it's going to force it to move vertically rather than
But
horizontally.
you said if it moves sideways, you have this other buffer.
That's correct. This
So
device here is designed to keep the water in the septic system from migrating into the wetlands.
okay, I'm not comfortable with it. I'll just tell you right now.
Any other questions, anybody?
What's the planning plan for around the walls that are right there in front? You know, the retaining walls?
In here?
Yes, yes. It looks like you've got about 10 walls there.
No, this is a drain.
Mm-hmm.
This is to capture the runoff from the driveway and let it infiltrate into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
These are not walls, these are just grade lines. They're just contour lines. This will probably, I don't really know what that landscape will be, but it'll either be lawn or low shrubs.
Well, you know what the problem is with steep slopes, it's the runoff. It's always the runoff.
Right.
And we're just curious what we're gonna do to
Okay,
keep it
and
from
that's-
running down when we have
and
a downpour.
We understand that, and we've done those calculations, and the question was something that came up with the planning board. This is an infiltration trench. Frankly, it works the same as a septic system. You put the water in the ground and it gets cleaned up and absorbed. This is storm water going in there, and so during construction we have silt fence there to trap the silt. Once it's stabilized, the water will run across a planted surface and then it'll enter into this trench and infiltrate into the ground.
Each one of those walls is approximately how high?
There is no wall.
You know,
These are not
the
walls.
retaining walls.
These are not walls.
Yeah. How high
Oh,
are those?
they represent a 2-foot change in elevation. They're a contour line. They're not a wall.
Okay.
I don't see Conservation Board approval here in this package.
In this,
Package that I have, I don't see it.
I have the minutes of the conservation meeting, which, let me just get too many things in my hand.
My records show the Conservation Board approved the application on January 8th, 2019.
Yes,
Well, I don't have it, I'm just saying, you know, I'd like to have it, you know.
There is the.
They don't make a formal
They,
recommendation? I mean, resolution?
they do make a formal resolution. That's their minutes, and there is one condition's yet to be fulfilled, which I took care of today. But if you go through there, I've highlighted the section, and then the vote to issue the wetlands permit is there in their minutes.
Yeah, okay, but I'm still not, they said you just took care of something today, you know what I'm trying to say? I would just be more comfortable for paperwork having to see me the approval from the
Well,
conservation.
we would certainly accept the condition on submitting that.
Right, well, it definitely would be, I mean, you know, before you would,
Right.
you know, because I understand what you're doing, but I'd just like to have the paperwork together.
Glenn, can you show me the planting plan?
There's some plans up here, and what, to be perfectly frank, we've agreed to work with the Conservation Board on selecting the plants when they're actually being installed. So I don't have a formal planting plan for this area.
But there is gonna be one.
Yes, it's going to be done in the field with the conservation officer.
Questions?
And
Anybody
again,
else?
how you catch the runoff from that driveway?
Well, the water will run perpendicular to these lines. It'll run down the hill. Right in here, there'll be a stone trench. I'd have to look to see how deep it is, but typically they're 4 or 5 feet deep. They're filled with gravel. The water comes down, goes into them, settles in there, and then eventually gets absorbed by the ground.
Is there any chance of more runoff from there? Filling the trench up and overflowing?
If it could fail like any other mechanical system. I mean, if this weren't planted properly and to hold the soil,
Right.
it could fill with the silt and stuff would come out and block it. But there's a couple of things that you do. That 6 inches below the surface, you put in filter fabric, which is designed to be able to take out some of the stone. And when routine maintenance, you change the filter, it traps those fines, the stuff that blocks the system. It traps the fines. You can take that little top layer off, replace that, put the top layer back, and you're back in business.
That buffer you have along the fields before, but, you know, the fields for the, yeah. What is that made of and how is that?
I'd have to look. I'm not sure I have it. It's a clay barrier. I mean, that much I know. It's an earthen barrier built with clay and impermeable soils, so that it basically forms a dam.
All right, so that would, the idea of it is to keep the water.
Keep the water behind it and not letting it flow.
How
into the
high is
wetlands.
that? Do you know? I mean, height it out or anything like that, you know?
It's more deep.
It's deep. It's not. It's
I'm
dug.
sorry?
It's dug into the ground.
Into the ground.
Into the
okay.
ground. And there's
Well,
not.
what's to
mu-
prevent it from going over the top is my question.
Well, that would be a total system failure. I mean, we've done the test to prove that the soils will work there, and to the satisfaction of the health department. If the and it,
Right.
it will be. The system would have to fail, would have to come to the surface of the ground and then flow over. Again,
Right,
you know,
I
we've
understand. I just wanted to know what it was meant.
worked to show and design it so it wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Is it possible to move the septic system to the other side of the house so that it's further away from the buffer?
Well, we've investigated that. It's too steep to put it there. That's,
Okay.
I do.
And also, people have wells in that area, right?
Right.
So,
Well, you know, there's, in this particular case, we don't have any wells within 200 feet on this side of the road, or within 100 feet, excuse me, on this side of the road, or within 200 feet over here. We meet all of those separation distances from the health department. And they are very conservative distances. The house I now live in, it's probably 25 feet from the well to the septic system. It's old, it's before they had regulations, but, you know, I had the water tested. And actually, my daughter was living there for 6 months. She had the water tested, and it's perfectly fine. But we do have the required septic distance, separation distances for the other wells.
Can I comment real quick on the septic
Sure.
system? Hi, I'm James Connolly. My wife's actually the applicant here. She just happened to be home the day that we dropped the application. That's why my name's not on as well.
A little louder, please.
Oh, my name's James Conley. My wife is the one on the application here. The reason I'm not on it is I just wasn't home the day she was doing all the paperwork, and she works from home, so it's a little easier for her to get it on there. But the reason I'm speaking to this about the septic system is I know some of your concerns about it were some of our concerns too. That's why we worked together with the Conservation Board. We worked together with Glenn and the Health Department. And a couple things that were done was that we wanted to make sure that this absorbs in the ground very well. So like he said, it would be a complete system failure to go over that clay barrier, which cannot be, you know, you can't go through clay with the amount of the size of the barrier that's going to be there. And in addition to that, I know that Jason, when they drew the plan for this, they actually added additional pipe to make it a little bit wider, so there's more, so that the system drains better over a larger space back there. And another note that I think was brought up too was that we couldn't move it back, but like he said before, we can't move the system onto a steep slope there. But I just want to let you know that a lot of thought went into that septic system there, and knowing that there's the regulated wetland down in the corner.
Well, you understand our concern.
Absolutely, I understand your concern with it, and that's why it was our concern too, and we went, I think, above and beyond with the plan for the septic system there.
Right.
Are the Connollys going to be the ones that live in this house?
That's our plan, yes.
Anybody, any more questions?
Couple things. Would the applicant be agreeable to a condition, I see you're using gravel for the driveway, a condition that says that it must be a permeable material, should be used, must be used at all times, or something like that, so that it doesn't turn into a blacktop driveway?
It's proposed.
Because it says gravel down
So
here.
the state
12 foot wide.
highway permit, I think, mandated it for a certain
Doesn't-
portion. I don't know if it was the whole portion or certain, but I think one thing that was also mentioned is that gravel pit that's on the side to absorb. In addition to that, we spoke with the Conservation Board, and what they wanted was a series of check dams put in place along the side of it. So it's not just a gravel trench where water's going to flow and go quickly down. Along that trench, as it's going up in grade, there's going to be a series of almost like steps. I don't know if you're familiar with a check dam. I wasn't until this process.
yes.
I wasn't until then, but it's a series of little dams that slow the water from going down too fast.
I think in looking at the highway permit, it doesn't really speak to your entire driveway. It speaks,
That's correct, the highways.
it only speaks to the entrance going in.
Yes, sir.
So what Mr. Sestone is asking for is possible. If he wants to make it a condition, that's his right. Okay.
That, I would think, that would be something that I would look for, you know, because houses change hands, before you know it's blacktop, then we have a runoff problem.
Well, these, you know what he's talking about?
I do. I think my concern with that would be the erosion of the driveway.
You have to use gravel, but some sort of permeable material at all times.
Oh, okay, I think the original plan, what we were looking for is
material.
blacktop, and the reason why is just the erosion issue.
Whatever
Permeable
suits
blacktop.
your need.
Okay.
Whatever suits your need.
There's permeable blacktop.
Oh, okay.
We could live with that. There is a
You're
permeable
talking about
blacktop.
The blacktop down at the end.
Blacktop down at the end is a state spec. We
Yeah,
we
right.
have to follow the state
Right.
spec. Once we get inside, we could use a permeable blacktop. I'm not a real fan of it, to tell you the truth.
It keeps the water from running. That's all I'm concerned about.
Yeah, Well, that's what permeable lactite, keep in mind, I don't want to tell you that it's going to absorb 100% of the water, because it's not.
I know.
But it will take some of the water. I'm not a big fan of it, but if that's the condition you want to put on it, we would accept that.
And then
Perhaps a permeable surface without limiting, so I'm not an expert
Yeah.
on the multitude of various surfaces you can install on a driveway, but I think the concern is permeability.
Yeah, you can put in permeable pavers and permeable black, but permeable surface would give us a little more
Plenty
freedom.
of different types.
Yeah, that's correct. That would be an acceptable condition.
And then one other thing, would you be agreeable to a condition that the runoff management system be maintained in a state of good repair?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or any concerns? Like I said, my only concern was I didn't see, what my own only, but, I don't see the Conservation Board approval. I know you're saying it's in the minutes, right?
The motion is in the minutes. The motion approving is in the minutes, which I handed up. And we certainly,
Well, I'm gonna make that a condition, that I'm not gonna,
we would take a condition that
Yeah.
we have to produce the
You want to hold
permit.
off the vote until you get it?
Yeah, I think, it's a good suggestion, because I just want to look at this a little more, because of the closeness of the wetlands. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm not trying to say no. I'm not trying to say no. I'd like to go out and take another look at the piece of property myself. Now, if other people feel they have enough to vote, that's up to them.
Well, we've been at this a while. And I understand the concern,
Right.
and that's the job of the wetlands people. And if we're meeting their conditions and we produce the permit, we've
Right.
we've
Oh, no,
accomplished
I
a
understand.
good-
Right, but
good
we don't have a
step.
permit as of yet.
Correct.
I know you say it's in the minutes, and I understand that. I'm not
Correct.
arguing that. It's just that, it is, like you say, that the wetlands does concern several people here. Unless everybody has enough information to vote, that's up to other board members. I'll leave it up to them.
I would rather wait, and I also would like to see the planting plan that you referred to. I mean, you made reference to it, but you didn't really tell us what it is.
Right.
So I would like to see that prior to making a decision.
We've been through all of that with the planning board, and I'm not, we'll give you the planting plan if you want it. It's just,
Well, let me just say, I feel like we should protect our wetlands at all costs, because that's wetlands is what provides clean water. And
understood.
So I'm very reluctant to approve something that is going to interfere with wetlands. So,
Well, I think at this time, let's see what we got on the table here. Basically, we got the surface you agreed to, right, the driveway to be permeable?
Yeah.
And what was the other thing, good condition or something like that, the drainage system maintained? I don't know how you could put that in there.
You want me to,
That's the applicant's benefit, to maintain the drainage system. We have no objection to an idea that it has to be
the
maintained.
goal is not to make time to gravel, because things change.
Yeah,
Right.
we have no issue with that.
Right. And you're asking for the planting?
yeah, I'd like to,
Plan?
I'd like to see whatever evidence that there is that there won't be a problem.
Okay, I'm asking for the Conservation Board resolution or approval, whatever they do, that ain't no permit, let's see the permits for the Conservation Board. So at this point, I think the best thing to do is to push this over till next month, May 13th, to give you a chance to get all that.
We were hoping to get in the ground by May 13th.
Well, it doesn't,
Frankly, I haven't heard anything that couldn't be conditioned. And to be perfectly frank about this, we're in a situation where if this were if this can't be built on because of the zoning law. We have a situation where we have a taking.
We haven't said that. Nobody said it couldn't be built
I
on.
understand that.
We've
I
asked for
just-
further information.
I fully understand what you're asking for.
Right.
I have two issues with it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think those questions have to do with whether or not we're due a variance. I don't think they're really germane with regard to the five-prong test. And frankly, we've been through the experts with all of that. So what you've listed as 4 conditions are reasonable conditions, we have no objection to them. If you talk about the absorption and the drainage, and we've been with the conservation board. If we talk about the setbacks and the steep slopes, we've been to the planning board. If we talk about the septic system, we've been to the health department. A condition that we produced the actual permit as opposed to the minutes that have the resolution in it, perfectly reasonable thing to do. But those conditions could all be, properly be a condition of the variance.
Right, but yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you to a point, but you're asking for some people to vote where they're not comfortable. I don't want to do that to the board members, okay? Unless you want me to. If you feel that we should vote tonight, we'll do that. Your choice.
Not much of a choice. We'll put it off for a month.
Okay, and we'll make it May 13th. And like I say, nobody's denying anything here, but just want more information.
I'm not accusing you
of denying
anything.
Okay, fine. May 13th at 7:30.
May 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this? I make a note that there's nobody has appeared for this. Okay, thank you. I want to do the minutes approval of last month's.
We're holding the public hearing open?
Yes, it's next month. But you don't have to make any new other, no more notifications or anything. Just till it gets to, the things that we're asking for. Yeah, hold it open next month. This time I'd like to, minutes of March 11th. Anybody have any changes or anything to the minutes?
I have a change.
You have a change?
I read them.
You're the one who did them, so how could you have a change?
I forgot the word here in the very first, you said Mr. Stone won't be here tonight, so
Right.
that's my correction.
That's your change, okay. He was in Florida.
When?
Okay.
Well, next month, that still can give you a May start on that, right?
Well,
We're in contract on the property right now, and obviously all record, we're on contract.
go ahead, talk. Got to go by the microphone because it's still, I didn't close the meeting. so-
You see, the contract actually expired a few months ago, so we actually asked them, because we needed this variance, and we
Right.
knew it's approximately 3 meetings, we had to get another 3-month extension for this, so I'm actually gonna have to call them again, and hopefully, hoping they don't give us any issue or anything like that, try to raise the price or anything, but,
Right.
so we'll have to get our contract for the property extended.
Okay.
It just gives the seller some
I
leverage
understand.
under us.
I
but,
understand. Let me explain to you what happened. It used to be years ago, it was like at one meeting, we would vote. Okay, then it would take another month or something like that to the resolution to come around, then they would vote again. We don't do that anymore, okay? We make the one vote, okay? Then the attorney makes up the resolution, okay? So you have to jump on his back to get the resolution done quickly, so that when he gives the resolution to the secretary and I sign it, okay?
But once you have the resolution, does it need another meeting to be
No.
finalized? Oh,
No.
okay.
No, they used to do it that way, we don't do it that way anymore, okay?
Oh, okay.
Because they're voting now, they're gonna vote, at the resolution, so when he completes it, I sign. Secretary calls me and I sign.
Oh, okay, I thought it was gonna be a whole nother meeting.
So we'll try and get it done as quickly as possible if
Okay.
it's approved. But there's
Understood.
people here who have questions, and I feel that the questions should be
Absolutely.
answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, March minutes, anybody know changes other than our secretary? No. Make a motion to be approved? All in favor?
Second?
Second?
Good night.
Okay, thank you. Old business. Those signs that we're talking about,
We don't have any here, and I mean, it's not.
we're talking about signs for the property.
No, I know what you're talking about, and it says in the code that they can be obtained from the town clerk's office, but I have to talk to Tina more about it, and I haven't had a chance to because she hasn't been here.
Okay, find out if,
We're
because,
supposed to technically supply them, but the only place I could find mention of them in the code was for the planning board for certain projects, like over a certain threshold.
okay. The reason I'm asking for it is like this particular one here, okay, just for instance, okay? You can guess where the property is, but without, with a sign there would make it a lot easier.
Can we use the planning board signs?
No, the planning board doesn't have any either because it's not a standard requirement on like any application. It's not a standard requirement. of notice on the property.
a sign?
No, I don't think there's a state requirement, and I'm not sure if it's in the town code that it's required. I mean, it's certainly not for zoning.
No, it's not required for zoning. It was something, I think it was an issue with cell towers, honestly.
Right, well, they put
I'd
up their
have to
own
look it up
sign.
again.
I know the cell tower company put up their own sign to make sure that they
Yeah,
were.
but in the code, it says in the planning board, somewhere in the planning board, because I looked it up after last meeting, I did, and I forgot to bring my notes with me on it. But they're supposed to be able to get them from the town clerk's office and then write on it themselves, because most of them are
Right.
handwritten, if you see. But we've never had them before.
Right,
So
well-
that's why what they did for the cell tower, they took it upon themselves to get it for themselves.
Well, let me ask the board members, does anybody think it's a bad idea or a good idea, or doesn't make a difference?
For signs?
Yeah.
Couldn't hurt.
Well, I'm only saying, because like this particular area where this property is, okay? You gotta really guess, what I'm trying to say, because it's all empty there, I mean, that's on the whole side of that street, so you could get out, I got out of the car and looked, and I wasn't 100% sure, that's why I wanted to take another look, so, to me, it would be,
And the planning board also, the way they do it, they schedule site visits and do notice of site visits.
Yeah.
So like they usually do them on Sunday morning, it's advertised in the paper, and they usually meet at Winter Hill and then go. So
Yeah,
it's usually,
yeah.
and the public, it's open to the public.
well, I'm not looking to make this a group hug, I'm just looking to, looking to get a sign on the property. All right, thank you. Anybody else? Any other business? Good motion, adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it, okay. Thank you.